Everyone. Welcome to day 9 of 30 years and 30 days. And tonight we are going to cover the teacher training in the United States, particularly from 1992 to 2003. All right, so I just wanted to bring us up to speed. Up until now, it's 1992, and you've got the teacher training program up and running, and Romana is teaching it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
Is Carol assisting?
Yeah. Well,
And you're,
the way it was, we talked about that last night with Carol. When she was at Purchase, she would teach the basic, and Romana would come in the beginning and at the end and sort of make, but Carol did a lot of the teaching. So that's, and that
okay,
was at Purchase. But
okay.
when we started to go outside of New York, then it
Mm-hmm,
was usually in the beginning it was Romana, and then as we grew, we had to get other teachers of teachers. So, Juanita and, and Roxy and Bob and other people, Bob, so we had teachers doing other things. So Romana wasn't overwhelmed.
so Juanita Lopez, Roxanne
Yep.
Richards Huang, Bob
Uh-huh.
Leakins.
Right. And Carol there. Let me make
So,
sure
and
that
up
this is,
until this point, it's at Purchase and it's in New York City
yes.
for the
And
most
then,
part. Okay.
so like this was later on. But this is a picture from one of the meetings that we had every year of the
Oh,
teachers
wow.
and the studio owners,
Okay.
right? So,
All
one of the
right.
things
So
that,
let's,
that was later
yeah,
on when we had more people and things, but let me start from the beginning. So
right. So
the
you're in
go
New
ahead.
York. What made you decide to expand the training program?
Well, like I said, when I first got off the apparatus the first time, I said, this should be everywhere.
Okay.
And if I ever get a chance, I'm going to do that. And, so I got the chance. I bought the business. I bought the
Mm-hmm.
trademarks and the archives and all that stuff. And so the first place that I, went to, was LA. But one of the reasons why I did that, what a lot of people don't understand it or know is that when I opened the studio, it was at least in the beginning, it was people I already knew. So Mindy Bonert, who followed me in my footsteps at Temple, I was a dancer, and then I did athletic training, and then I did physical therapy. And she sort of, I sort of was I'm the one who trailblazed that, and then
Yeah.
other people started following me, wanting to do
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so when she graduated, I was working on Jerome Robbins Broadway, and they were going to go on tour, and they were going to be in LA, and then they were going to go to Japan. So I contacted her and said, "Are you interested in, covering this show?" And she said yes. And then I said, when you come back and it's done, if you want
Mm-hmm.
to think about opening a physical therapy and a Pilates studio, let me know. And
Okay.
so she said yes. And what I did is I basically, I was the one who financed most of it. I paid most of the bills, and I paid most of, took care of, getting them started. And so
Right.
the first place I opened was LA, because to me, one of the things was, you want to get, you want to get promotion, and you want to get
Mm-hmm.
recognition. So if you're in LA and you start working with performers and they start coming to the Pilates and the PT, we can
Right.
build that. And I was building, I had at one point thought about trying to, have physical therapy for dancer, places. The reality, I figured out after LA that it's really difficult to do, because, New
Mm-hmm.
York has thousands and thousands and thousands of dancers. Most other
Right.
cities have 100
Not,
or
not
two.
so much. Yeah. New
And you
York is
can't
the
really,
hub.
right.
Yeah.
Maybe Vegas now and Brantford, Branson, and some other places where they have a lot of performances now.
Right.
But
Right.
back then there was very little. So, and I thought I could do that. I couldn't, but we could do Pilates. So that was the first place I went, and
Okay.
we promoted it, we advertised, I had a PR person, we got articles written, we started to, do the same things that like Joe did. Joe, had a PR person, and he got articles written, and we basically tried to do the same thing. But I also did, I started advertising nationally as well. So, there was, I had
Okay.
national, in like Dance Magazine and other magazines and things like that, that were
Yeah.
relevant. I started putting in there that, you could become a teacher and, all the different places that we have.
So you really laid the groundwork. Catherine says she's a proud graduate of the teacher training program with you and Romana.
Yep, she is. And she worked
Yeah.
at Purchase with Carol as well. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Okay. So where did you go after LA?
so LA, then the next place I went is Seattle. And I opened up with Lauren Steffen and Lori Coleman. Lauren Steffen had been a patient of mine when I was in, she was from New York, but was living in Seattle. And when she would come back, the first place I worked at was at Marika Molnar's.
Okay.
East Side Dance Medicine, East Side Dance Medicine, and then became West Side. But when
Okay.
I worked for her was when she was on the East Side, and I knew Lauren from that. And so Lori, I went into business with Lori and Lauren, and
Hmm.
I financed it again, and it was the Capitol Hill Physical Therapy and the Pilates Studio. And the
Okay.
logo that I have now, some people think it's a whale tail, but it's supposed to be Joe holding up the world. So depends on how you look at it. But
Yeah.
that,
Once
I
you
paid.
know that, you can see it.
Right. So, but I paid for, all that, that artwork and everything to be done. And then
Uh-huh.
I started using that became the logo for Pilates Inc.
Okay. So you really financed it. You had the vision of taking it all around to major cities, and
Right.
Romana's teaching it.
Yes. And that was part of it. It's like to be, you open it because, it's difficult to do a training if you don't have the right equipment and a studio and all that stuff. So I started to do that. And because the trademark, what I did is I allowed them to do sweat equity. So they didn't have the money. So I put the money up and then they worked. And then,
Right.
they were able to have 49% of the business and
Right.
I own 51 because I had controlling interest because of
Yeah.
the trademark. And that's how I
Yeah.
did it. So that's how I set it up.
Yeah. It's your baby.
Right. Well,
So now,
I
so
made sure anybody that wanted to do a business and have that in their name, I
yeah.
was willing to do that, but that's how I had set it up. And my lawyers advised me I needed to do that. Otherwise you could lose
Yeah.
the name and they could use it. So,
Yeah. So they had sweat equity. Romana didn't have sweat equity. She got paid, right?
oh, yes, she did. Yes, she did. I looked for it, but I couldn't find it today. But there
Hmm.
is in her one of her testimonies, she's had quite a few.
Yeah.
They asked her if she ever made money, with Pilates Inc. And she says, no, I never did.
Hmm.
I never got paid. I never got paid by Pilates Inc. But what she was talking about was, when you own a business, when she owned the business and was
Hmm.
51% owner, she got money from the business, if, that kind of thing. Never got that from me because she wasn't an owner. But what she did get was paid every time she did any work.
As
And
an
that
employee.
I have plenty of check stubs.
Yeah.
Yes, she
Well,
got
and we
paid all the
know
time.
people delivered checks to her from you. They hand delivered checks. So there's witnesses from that aspect as well. So Romana got paid.
Right. Well, she
Okay.
said she never saw money from the teacher training. And, the teacher, again, she got paid to teach, but she didn't get money for the teacher training. I set that up. I mean, it was my business. It wasn't hers. And,
Hmm.
she was an employee. And I can guarantee you that if you didn't pay her, she wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So, that when I hear,
I've talked about that. Yeah. That
I've heard,
dichotomy of, go ahead.
well, I've heard people say, like, he never paid her because of
Right.
that, because of that testimony, but they have no idea. They weren't there. They didn't, and I know Jennifer Ruggiero says, I know she got paid because I took her the checks.
Yeah.
I mean, so she
Yeah.
got paid. So that we can
Yeah.
put that tall tale or
Put that
false
to
or
rest.
whatever you want to call it. That's that we dug
Yeah.
the grave and we buried it. It's done. So
Yep.
yep,
Yeah. Because I've always said you can't have Romana be both. You can't have her be
right,
somebody that everybody took advantage of, or this incredibly tough Jennifer's there. She's like, I brought her the checks.
Yeah.
She's one or the other, and she was nobody's pushover.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, okay.
No.
So
Ramon,
let's,
Ramon,
like you said,
I was
let's
kind of
move
like,
on.
it's sort of like with John Steele, right? He's like, I met with her once, and then I went back again, and he might try to make this thing, but the reality is, when he went back, she said, I need 50% or I'm not doing it, and they had to give her 50%. So that's what happened. He just doesn't want to sort of
Yeah,
expand on that. So because she
yeah.
wasn't stupid.
Okay. So what are some of the other cities that you set up the training programs in,
Okay, well,
and who are some
we
of those
set up
people that we might
in,
know?
yeah. So we did
Chicago.
Chicago. And when we did Chicago, it was Evanston first. It was Evanston first, and then
Uh-huh.
we did another one, smaller one, but that was a different business. We did it differently, and then we also did open a studio at Hubbard Street, and we did it at Hubbard Street
Okay.
because I toured with them as their therapist anytime they went out of the country. So from like '95 to 2005.
And that's
So I
Chicago,
went all
right?
over Europe. I went to, yeah, right. That's
Okay.
Chicago, downtown Chicago. Well, kind of not
Yeah.
way downtown, but
Yeah.
in Chicago proper. And they got a building and they had extra space. And I wanted to open a PT and a Pilates place. So I
Okay.
connected it that way. So we did it that way. And,
Okay.
and that's where, and we did a training there we did trainings there. And then I did Atlanta. We opened in Atlanta in Buckhead.
Okay.
And when we first opened, we were in the Atlanta Ballet School.
Oh, wow.
They had a studio there for the school. So I started there, and then in the same shopping center, we just moved to another building. They're on the second floor. We started there, and then we moved to a second
Okay.
building. I went
Uh-huh.
and negotiated with the ballet, and then once we got it going, I opened in Fort Myers with
Oh,
Hope
okay.
Treen, and that was again, I had a PR person there, Bonnie Grossman. She helped with a lot of stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
I opened up in Philadelphia, two places.
Okay.
I opened up in Philadelphia at the Pennsylvania Ballet. What I did is I opened up a physical therapy and a Pilates studio there, and
Mhm.
they, basically I let the company people use the facilities and get PT, and
Okay.
I didn't have to pay, and I didn't have to pay rent. We worked a deal out. I paid some rent, but not that much.
Okay.
And then I opened up in Bryn Mawr, which is a suburb outside of Philadelphia, and that's when my sister
Okay.
Megan is a Pilates teacher, and she ran that studio.
Okay.
So that's
Nice.
sort of, yeah. So I went to a number of different places and started to open up, and there was plans to do more.
Mm-hmm.
I went to other countries. We'll talk about that later. But in the
Yeah.
U.S., that's pretty much where I was, and then when the trademark that
Yeah.
that sort of put a bind on things, and then what really put a
Before
bind
we
on
get
things was,
before we get to that though, I wanted to ask a little more about how did the program evolve as you went from one city to the next and you had different teachers. Um, you know, did the
well,
program evolve and grow? Did the manual get bigger? Did
so the
how,
the manual. So in the beginning, right, the manual. We talked about that with Carol, and I'm going to talk
Mhm.
about the second manual on Saturday, I think, right, again,
Right.
or some coming up sometime soon. I'm talking about. I'm not sure
Yeah.
which day, but I'll be talking about the second manual. And it did really get bigger. It got refined.
Okay.
Ramana. When we first did it, we did it quickly, and
Uh-huh.
we did photo shoots. She wasn't at the first photo shoot, so in the first
Right.
one we didn't have a. I talked about this. We didn't have a stick, so we used physio balls, and she was not happy. But
Yeah.
that's what we
But I
had, so
mean
we
like
used
the
that.
actual trainings as you
Well,
went, you
what
know.
happened, the way it worked is, Romana would go, but eventually we would start having other teachers. Basically we when we first started, we had 12-day intensive at Purchase. We
Okay.
had the weekends where we would do each apparatus. But Romana really didn't like that because she realized that they weren't really getting the integration of the system. So
Okay.
we eventually switched to, basic, intermediate, advanced, and went away from that. And so that's
The
how things
piecemeal
evolved
of
over,
it.
right. That it evolved into that. And again, that's,
Okay.
we would have the meetings every year. We'd have these,
Mhm.
these meetings with everybody, and like what worked, what didn't work,
Yeah.
what did we want to do, and everybody had a say. But Ramana, if she didn't like what somebody wanted to do, it didn't
Hmm.
happen. She
Yeah.
had final say. And there's a number of times when I did things that weren't necessarily the best business decision because of what she wanted, but it was
Hmm.
what she wanted, so I said okay.
Can you give us an
Yeah.
example?
Well, when it was like, in a relationship to doing the work, and how we're charging and the times, and how that all came together, and I'd say, can I do this? Can I add this or take this away? And she'd be like, no, you can't take it away. We need more. We don't need less. I mean,
Mhm.
because it made it tough. So that's what it was. And
Okay.
you know it was I specifics right now. I'd have to go back and look at the records, but there were things like, there were things that
Yeah.
she wanted things done a certain way, and I said okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then, around you had the lawsuit and the court decision, and then
Well,
what
what
changed?
happened what happened was, that was tough, but it was really 9/11, because
Okay.
all the uh, well, a couple of the facilities, when 9/11 happened, all my income basically
Yeah.
disappeared for about almost 9 months.
Okay.
And I was using, when you build a business, right? You have a business that's making money. Well, I have this one, and then I use this one. I use the money from this to start that, and I was starting a couple because they were making money, but so it wasn't like I had to pay for everything. They were making money, but I still had to put money into them. Well, when
Yeah.
9/11 happened and my cash flow dried up, I almost went out of business. I mean, I all my savings, everything was gone, and I ended up having to close a number of studios.
Okay.
Bryn Mawr, Atlanta, Fort Myers, and it wasn't because I wanted to. It's because I couldn't run them anymore.
Yeah.
And then I had, with in Seattle, I had some issues. They were working like 10 hours a week and paying themselves like they were working full time. And I said, we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I had a real problem because I went to Seattle to do a PT conference, a workshop, continuing education weekend.
Uh-huh.
And before I'd finished teaching, they had somebody come and serve me papers.
Wow.
Not good, not good at
No.
all. So, they ended up buying me out and, going and doing their own thing. But it was,
Okay.
things like that, but, these are the people that, I
Yeah.
paid for it. I let you get started. And then, I was coming out. I said, we have to talk. You can't do, we're going to have to change the business because I was 51% owner. And then
Yeah.
they sued me before, without, and didn't say anything. And then I'm getting served papers when I'm teaching a course. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was not happy. So, but that's what happens sometimes.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Things
but
change.
and then I different things happen, and they all, most of them had to close because I couldn't afford it. It wasn't, you know some of it was some of it was the trademark, right? Because I with the business,
Yeah.
but a lot of it was 9/11.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to 2003. Yeah. So,
All right.
so that does kind of take us to the end of 2003 and kind of wrapping things up.
Okay.
Is there
So,
anything else that you would add?
well, we took it to a number of places. We trained lots and lots of teachers. I mean, you have to remember that each one of those places, we would usually one or two trainings a year.
Mm-hmm.
And part of when I'd send the calendar out, it would have a list of all the, it would list all the trainings and where they were and everything else. So
Oh,
then when you
yeah?
have a calendar, you could have that as well. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's something that, we did. I was always trying to, intermix and intertwine, and, people could start at one studio and they could go to another one. They had to do some paperwork and, different things that they
Yep.
have to do. So it
Okay.
was, we were building that relationship and being able to do all that stuff. So it was really, because that's what was needed to me to really to try to, if Joe wanted it everywhere, you had to take
Yeah.
it everywhere. And I started that process. And I sometimes I think in hindsight, instead of spending all the money I did for the trademark, it might have been, if I'd had spent that money building the business, I would have been able to probably be, I would have been able to make a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure I would have been able to, I didn't do it for the money. I was doing it to protect the quality and integrity of work that I didn't,
Yeah.
that I bought and in essence inherited, that responsibility. And that's what I was trying to do at the time.
Yeah.
Business wise, it would have probably been better to just, spend all the money and just open up and open up and open up. It's, I'd have been the Club Pilates.
Yeah. But you would have been yeah. Um, you also had to answer to Ramana, right?
Well, that's it. That's what I couldn't just do, anything and everything.
Yeah.
And, she was getting a bit, and that was the other thing. It was like, it got to the point where not everybody, when people say I was trained by Ramana, well, they didn't get certified by Ramana,
Mm-hmm.
right? Their certificate, her signature's on it as the main teacher, and my signature's on it, but it was Pilates Inc. certification, and their
Right.
certification, and so that's really who they're certified in. And I find it always interesting that, some people say that, but quite a few try to just say Ramana certified me, and they
Yeah.
don't live up to what, where they really got certified.
Yeah.
And what happened is that not Ramana didn't train everybody after, near the end. She was,
Mm-hmm.
the other teachers were teaching and they still got certified but they could say, oh, I'm, if you had that certificate, I'm, Ramana trained. Well,
Yeah.
technically, yes, but not necessarily. And it would be the point where she would have maybe only do one of the weekends, the last weekend, and bring it all together. And the
Yeah.
other teachers would do that. We sent people everywhere, so it was too
Yeah.
much for her. She just got too busy because
Yeah.
otherwise she wouldn't have been able to be at Drago's teaching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was, she did what she wanted to do, and she got enough, and then we
Yep.
brought other people in, and it was great. It really worked well.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
All
All
right.
right. So that's it, right?
That is it for
Sorry about the
today.
technical difficulties. It's too bad that, I don't know why
Okay.
it keeps doing this.
Yeah, that's
Maybe I
all
need to
right.
get a new phone. Still have an iPhone 6, so, it's getting
Yeah.
old.
All right. So tomorrow you're meeting at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, and you're going
Yep.
to talk about the making of the three books, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
The publishing of the archival book, the collected writings, and the Pilates method of body conditioning. That basically was, a book on the basic
Right.
system with equipment, which had never been done before.
Yeah. Okay. Good job. All right.
All right.
Look forward to
All right.
that
Thanks.
tomorrow.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We
And
appreciate it.
congratulations to
And,
Nancy Hodges.
yes, congratulations. Also, you know what else tomorrow is, right?
No.
I'll be 64.
What? Well,
Yep.
happy birthday.
Well, that's tomorrow. You can say that then.
All right. Okay.
All right,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.